Hello and welcome to the Grizzled Warmaster. Today we're going to continue our look at 3rd edition. Alright, let's take a look at some 3rd edition predictions and my wish list for what I think we need in the 3rd edition release. So first off, let's address the elephant in the room, the random turn mechanic. Regardless of your thoughts and feelings on this element of the game, it is my opinion that this is not going anywhere. I think that GW sees this as a real distinction between 40k and Age of Sigmar, and it's what really separates the two out. Regardless of the setting and the specific rules, this is what really sets them apart. So I don't believe that the random turn mechanic is going anywhere. I do, however, believe that they will follow the trend of reducing the size of the battlefield. GW's philosophy here is they want the battle to take place on the size of a typical kitchen table. So they're reducing it from 4x6 down to 44 inches by 60 inches, which is it's just a little bit smaller than the 5 feet, the 4 feet, and it's down to 5 feet in width. This will have a number of impacts on the game. It will bring some shooting and magic into range much quicker in the game, but it'll also allow close combat armies to close with those magic and shooting-based armies much quicker. Also importing from 40k, in my opinion, is a +1, -1 maximum bonus or penalty to hit. This was instituted in 9th edition 40k. I actually think it's a good idea. And it is +1 or -1 in the wash. So if you're shooting at something that gives you a -1 to hit, but you have +2 to hit as a bonus to hit, they will, add together to a total of +1 to hit. Same if you have two things that are giving minuses to hit and one giving a plus, you'll end up at the most at a -1. I think it's a good rule to import from 40k, so I think we'll see that. Next, I believe we are going to see some development on the terrain front, and we will likely, though they may not be the same keywords that 40k has for their terrain, I do believe we will see the implementation of the keywords into the Age of Sigmar terrain. I'm hoping that we'll get obscuring. I think that's a great rule. It's nice to have some things that are totally unable to be seen through. You can't shoot through the wild woods or whatever. But I would like the idea of the obscuring terrain where you can see through it, you can target people on it, but you're going to get a minus to hit. I think that would be a nice addition. And we'll see if they go ahead and revamp all of the, the types like arcane and commanding and dangerous, volcanic and all of these kinds of, overall terrain modifiers or terrain descriptions, and then kind of institute those keywords where you could have terrain is dangerous. If you roll a 6, while somebody's standing next to it, they'll get hurt or gives cover or whatever that might be. It'd be interesting to see how they might integrate those things together. I also believe we're going to get something along the lines of objective secured. I know and I'm not necessarily saying this would be the best solution, but I could see something like this coming along where Battle Line and even maybe Mega Gargants get the objective secured, and then it's parsed out to other units as a special ability. Well, Mega Gargants would be a special ability for them, but that everybody's Battle Line would have the objective secured, and then we'd kind of pepper that in throughout. I think less likely, but something that's similar in 40k, and I didn't put this on here because it didn't occur to me until later, the idea of core might be something we could see, where they try and limit the number of units that benefit from certain command abilities or certain bonuses. And that's going to be a little harder to implement in Age of Sigmar than in 40k, because so many armies are very limited in the number of units they have, which makes it more difficult to hand out the core keywords. I mean, you do have 40k armies like the Harlequins, the Knights, and things like that, where it would be difficult to have, there aren't very many units, so, you know, who do you give core to? But some other armies, you know, like obviously Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, even Tau and Tyrannid, you know, they have plenty of units that make sense to give core to. I'm not sure you would have the equivalent in, say, Flesh Eater Court. Who do you give it to other than the you know, the foot guys? Who do you give it to in Lumineth? They're expanding, so it'd be a little easier too. But you know, then you have like Fire Slayers, where it's like, wow, you got 2 units you're going to give it to. So I'm not sure that core will be coming, but it'd be interesting to see. All right, and then the last thing I think is a very likely to change is a restriction or totally removing immunity to battle shock. And I say totally removing the ability to give people immunity to battle shock that they don't normally have. So you may still have a specific unit, or in the case of Bone Reapers, a specific army that is immune to battle shock, but I think they're going to get rid of the command ability to do that, and then maybe auras that provide battle shock immunity, and they'll make it a little more limited, I think. Again, these I think are likely changes, but we'll have to wait and see how they are implemented. So let's take a look at some of my wish list items. First, let's look at individual units and some changes I'd like to see. First, I'd like to see them, again, dip into 40k and give named characters the ability to have command traits. In this case, much like the Warlord traits in 40k, specific named characters would have assigned command traits. You know, like if you take this person and you make them your general, they get this command trait. That way you still give them that bonus, but you don't leave it wide open to min-maxing with some of the, you know, with the wide range that an army might have access to. In general, heroes need a lot of work, and I am going to do a separate video on this, but the heroes are in a lot of heroes are in a tough state where they are too squishy for the amount of points that they cost. They're meant to give out, like, they're largely are buffing characters, but are too easy to kill. They never really seem worth their points, except in, you know, limited circumstances. So I don't know. Here's a couple of ideas I think would be nice to see in the new rules. One, let's get back to the old world and allow heroes to join units. Now, this would be, you know, infantry heroes can join infantry units, cavalry heroes could join cavalry units, or, you know, in the case of like the Seraphon, you've got some flying heroes that could join flying units that they are meant to modify. And then obviously monsters characters would not be able to join units. I'd also like to see them bring back ward saves. In this case, I see them being like invulnerable saves in 40k, where it is basically an unrendable save, but that is separated from their armor save. So you could, if you wanted somebody, like, for example, we've got the Light of Eltharion here. It's him being ethereal and having the 3+ unrendable save. That's cool for him and for what you're going for with this character. You know, he's ghostly, and you've got the Night Hunt or something like that. And ethereal, as it stands, works well. And in this reimagining in my head, Ethereal would grant a ward save equal to your armor save. But some people, you're going to want to have the ability for them to always have an armor save, but not necessarily to be as crazy good as their current save is. Or you want it to be their armor can be modified and made better, but they still have this ability to at some point ignore rend. So for example, you could have somebody like Catacross, who's got a 3+ save, but his command ability lets you take it down to a 2+, but you want him to have something more than just his 6-up Deathless Warrior save. So you give him a 5-up or a 4-up unrendable save, the ward save, so that he will always have that level of armor. Alternatively, I guess you could make the ward save something that is specifically against just mortal wounds, so that you have a save versus normal attacks, you have a save versus mortal wounds attacks, and then you have a damage prevention roll afterwards that would stop either of those. Those are two ways I could see it going. I would prefer the first, and that you make resistance to mortal wounds a separate ability. But, I'd be open to either. And next, again, this is one I'm going to make a separate video about, but monsters and behemoths need some real work. They need to degrade less than they currently do, and they need to be more durable. Very few monsters are the equivalent of what you would get by spending those points on other troops. They suffer from the ability to capture objectives, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. I think that should be changed. They often degrade quicker than a unit of similar point value would, and they lose attacks. Some monsters start off doing less damage than an equivalent unit would, and get worse as they go. Some, do more, especially more recent ones. They do a little better, but they still degrade to the point where, the equivalent points spent on a unit would have more wounds, would be more durable, would, maintain its punching power longer. And they make up for this often with little niggly abilities that don't really justify their point cost, in my opinion. And they're just so squishy. If you decide that you want to take down, say, a Stegodon, and you're not fighting them in melee with less than 5 guys, 5 or less guys, half of your attacks are going to go through. You're going to be able to pepper them away from range. You could hit them with mortal wounds. You can quickly make them essentially worthless, it's not as easy to do with bigger units. But anyways, that's all. I'm going to do a separate video on it, so I'm not going to delve too far into that. All right, next, let's look at how the phases of the game play and what changes I'd like to see there. First off, I'd like to see a beginning of the round phase. And in this, both players would collect their command points at the same time. So no more that, I get to go first, so I rock this unit so that it can't possibly make its morale save or its bravery check. And, battle shock, you lose that unit, it's useless. Or various things I've seen. Like, for example, I saw a Caradron Overlords versus Lumineth Realm Lord video, battle report, where Teclis was killed before he even got to go, even using his Ether Quartz to give himself a 3-up armor save. Now, would have being able to reroll ones to saved him? Maybe not, but it's something. So I think both players should collect their command points at the same time at the beginning of the round. And then you could do all of the other stuff that's beginning of the round. Move endless spells, determine what, where objectives are going to land, or what objective is got priority, or those kind of things. In the shooting phase, we have seen very recently that shooting meta is a thing, that shooting armies are becoming very powerful. So I think one way we could limit that is to not allow shooting into melee. except your own. So if you as a missile-based unit are engaged in combat, you can still shoot the enemy that's engaged you. But if your friends are fighting somebody in melee combat, you can't shoot into that without risking hitting them. So I think that would be a nice way to kind of tone down some shooting. And then you could give special abilities where it's like, all right, yeah, these guys are experts at it. They know how to shoot into it. So we're going to give them they shoot at them but at a -1 or something like that. So when you do these kind of limitations, not only do you solve a problem for, a certain part of the meta that's gone out of control, you also open up extra areas where you can, mess around with special rules. So I think that would be interesting. In the combat phase, I would like to see them revise pile-ins so it's towards the closest enemy that your unit is engaged in, not that your particular model is closest to. That would solve silly problems where it's like, oh, this unit is within 4 inches of this guy on the end of my unit, but we're engaging this unit on the other side. That, if I was able to move that direction, my 2-inch range weapon would be able to hit them. Why wouldn't you do that? Oh, yeah, we're worried about these guys we can see over here. That doesn't make any sense. And it stops this silly, like, I've got to measure every unit and make sure that, oh, am I closer to this model or this model? Can I pile in this way? Just pile in towards the unit you're engaged with, not towards any individual model on a case-by-case basis. I think that would fix the combat phase and the pile-in section very well. It is kind of annoying sometimes, especially if you get somebody who can be very particular about how pile-ins and things. I'd also like to see them add a consolidation move. I think this is a really cool ability of melee in 40k. I think it adds a little mobility to melee units, which they really need right now in this shooting meta. Now, whether or not that would be overkill if you instituted some other ideas, I'm not sure, but I think it's something that could really help. Finally, in Battle Shock phase, this is my idea for what could replace the idea of being immune to Battle Shock. And for some reason, this got cut off here, but let me go in. The general idea here is the way you determine your bravery check for Battle Shock is you take the casualties you've taken, any negative modifiers from, being next to undead or being next to mega gargants or spells that were cast, and you subtract them from your leadership to a minimum of 0. You then, the person who is making the Battle Shock test, rolls 2d6, and the amount that is over your modified leadership, that's how many casualties you take. And then a 12 double 6s on 2d6 would be insane courage. You don't run away. Now, what I cut off here is that the command ability to make yourself immune to Battle Shock, in this case, would just make you have a 10 leadership base to start with. And then you modify down from that. Or you could do something like it gives you a +5 to your leadership, so that those units that have, crazy, they already have a 10 bravery, well, they're even that much harder to call out on, to ruin in Battle Shock checks. So those are some ideas I have. Now let's look at how we could change objectives and scoring. I think objectives is one of the things that really needs to be addressed in a new edition. One, this has always been an issue. I want control to be determined by wounds instead of models. This would take units or armies like Stormcast and Iron Jaws and even people like why am I blanking on their names? The ogres, the Ogre Maw tribes, things like that. You don't need to give them a special rule. They have more wounds, so they count as more to hold an objective. And you don't need things like might makes right special rules. It's just if a Mega Gargant's standing on an objective, he's 35 models. Or he's 35 wounds worth of holding that objective. Or, you know, a Bloodthirster's 12 or 14, I can't remember. You know, whatever. Those single monster models are a little more effective when it comes to controlling objectives. The second thing is we can maintain the idea of you gain control of an objective at the end of each player's turn. So that means, you know, players going second don't have to just sit, or, you know, players don't need to sit still on their turns necessarily to hold an objective. It's just every turn. That would be a disadvantage of going first in the first battle round, is now you have to leave some guys touching your objectives to gain control of them. So you can't just run out and alpha strike and leave all of your objectives behind, or maybe you get to hit the enemy really hard, but you don't score any points because none of your objectives are held, or they're held very loosely with heroes who are lagging behind or whatever. So I think that would be a good way to address the objectives, which is how it currently is. But if you score it then at the end of the round, that makes going second a little better, because you can react to how things are, you know, how the objective game looks, and you can, you know, people going first have to think about, can they run around me and gain control of this? Do I need to be a little more cautious to hold these objectives? Do I need to block a little better? So I think that would make the game a little more tactical than it can be at times. Scoring. I like a lot of the things they did with the General's Handbook 2020. I think it fixed a lot of the issues that some of the previous battle plans had. And I'd like to see more of the idea of specific units give bonus points in different battle plans, encouraging people to make more diverse armies. But I don't like the idea of certain battle plans where only a specific type of unit can score. Like only Battle Line can score, or only heroes can score. That puts some people in, different armies will have different abilities to engage with those. Some armies, like Bone Reapers, Lumineth, different ones will have very few heroes comparative to somebody like the Khorne, or who like Seraphon, who have a ton of heroes, plenty of heroes to throw at an objective and to spread around the board, and gain control of those, or have backup heroes that if a hero dies, they've got somebody else who can go and take it. So like I said, I like the idea of a specific unit, whether it be Battle Line or a Behemoth or a Wizard or a hero or something, giving you bonus points for being near an objective, but I don't like the idea of you needing a specific unit to score a specific objective. All right, guys, that will wrap things up. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you would, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Most importantly, share this with a friend so we can grow this YouTube channel. We'll have more content about 3rd edition, about issues, like I was saying, with the characters and shooting and behemoths and things I think need to be addressed. We'll continue doing faction focus videos. We'll look at all of the Broken Realms books as they come out. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments. What are you looking forward to in 3rd edition? What would you like to see changed? And I'll see you next time.